Hello students, this is Nirmala and today we are going to see class 8 history chapter number 1, how, when and where. In this lesson we are going to see different parts. From that the first one part is how important are dates. We are going to see the importance of dates, why these are important for the study of history, or how can we identify these dates, or the how it changes, how the importance of these dates changes. First of all, we are going to see this picture on the first page of this lesson, which is figure number 1. This picture depicts here the Brahmins offering the Shastras to Britannia. Frontispiece to the first map produced by James Rennell in 1782. Rennell was asked by Robert Clive to produce maps of Hindustan, an enthusiastic supporter of British conquest of India. Rennell saw preparation of maps as essential to the process of domination. Rennell thought that if they have to dominate this country, or they have to grab the country, they need to know what are the maps of this country, and they wanted to know each and every corner of the country to dominate. The picture here tries to suggest that Indians willingly gave over their ancient texts to Britannia, a symbol of British power, as if asking her to become the protector of Indian culture. Rennell wanted to show us that Indian people, or these Indian Brahmins, willingly gave their old, which text was there, books were there, to this Britannia, which was a symbol of British power, British Raj, and he wanted to show us that we are urging, or we are requesting her to protect Indian culture. So in this picture we can see the Britishers are there, one king, we can see Britannia, a symbol of British power, and Brahmins. These Brahmins are offering our Indian text to Britannia. So here Rennell wanted to show us that we have our Indian, by their wish or by their own, they have given their rights to Britannia, or to British power. Now we will turn towards our topic, what in what is the importance of, and how dates are important. So in history we know that always you think, or people think, to anyone if you ask about the history, they will think that why to study history, there are many dates, and how to remember all those dates, we don't understand those dates and histories. It is very hectic to remember those dates. For every event different dates, years, era is there, so it is very difficult, we don't like history. But students, if you see, or if you study it willingly or carefully, you will also have the interest in study of history. History is certainly about changes that occur over time. What is history? Just which certain changes have occurred in history or in past, that is only we study, that is the history. It is about finding out how things were in the past and how things have changed. How the things, everything was there in the past. Maybe agriculture, maybe kings were there, maybe pottery, whatever the things are there, lifestyle of the people, house, the types of houses, types of crops, everything what we see in the past, all that is the part of study of history. As soon as we compare the past with the present, we refer to time, we talk of before and after. So, when we talk about the history, that is the part of just what has happened before and what has happened after said anything. So, living in this world, we do not always ask historical questions about what we see around us. Always we must be curious, but many of the times we ignore those things because we think that everything, whatever we see, that was from many of the years, it was there itself. As the tea which we sip in the morning, that is very common thing, usual thing for us. It is there in everyone's house. When any guest comes, we offer them tea or coffee. But we should wonder, or we should ask this question, that when this tea or coffee has been started in our country or anywhere, why people like to have a tea wherever they go. It was not from the beginning, it has started afterwards. So it has also a history, from where this tea has come, from where this coffee crop has come, that we should see. Or when we are traveling through railways, at that time also we can see that when these railways has started or how it has come to use. So these are the importance of dates. Or we will see in further point also that newspapers we read. Previously people did not have these newspapers or media to get knowledge. So we have to think for that also, how people were doing their daily routines. Then if we see time it passes and the importance of dates also changes. Sometimes when any date is unknown for the historians, they may have written that some era or period like 18th century, 17th century, whole centuries maybe name is given, or sometimes it is given like early 20s, early 30s, or in the year of 1980. Like these examples are given because certain date is unknown for any event. There can be no one clear date for a process such as this. If certain things are there that we know, 15th August 1947, our India has become free from the British rule, that we know. Or many of the dates are there that we don't know. In that condition, most of the time these historians give us only period or only that era or the year. Then why then do we continue to associate history with the string of dates? Then why we use these dates for the history? But yes, these dates are important because these many of the battles when started, or many of the big events were there, like birth of any uh, child or a king, or his lifestyle, his when he has married with any princess, or again which different battles, important battles in his life. Like we know the example of Shivaji Maharaj, different battles he has fought with the different enemies. But in that again, from his birth everything was important, how his birth was there. Then how from childhood he has got the all the knowledge from Ramayana, Mahabharata stories. Jisamata has given him training, proper training. So each and everything is shown in his history. Like that, for particular events, certain events, we need these dates. That when he fought different, these forts are there, he captured. These events are important. Then when he has crowned, or when he got married, when he had children, or uh, when his achievements were there, or every these particulars were there, they needed particular dates, specific dates. As we have seen in the history textbook, we see many of the times that historians write these dates, particular dates are there, and we have to learn those dates because those are important. Due to that date, we come to know about the particulars of that era. Then we have to know about the lifestyle of the people, what was there, how their livelihood was, or which types of crops they have grown or they were growing, what type of markets were there, which types of clothes they worn in the past. That is also important. What type of society was there and how the society has changed from past to now. Now, if you see here one picture, Lipton's teas. The picture is advertising a tea and coffee. This advertisement helps to create a taste because people did not know about this beverage, and at the beginning they have started to give this advertise in a newspaper. In this advertisement, it is shown that when the Queen Victoria of Britain's third son is sitting on a horseback, and backside of his horse, back on the background, there is a outer wall of an Indian palace. It means that they wanted to show that if you will purchase this tea, if you will sip this tea, your life also will become precious. Your life also will become like this prince, that how luxurious life he has or how his livelihood is there. Your life also will become like that luxurious, they wanted to show. So with the picture very easily, I means we will attract, people will attract towards this advertisement and we will go to purchase the tea. Next part we will see that it's which dates, then which dates we have to consider, what is the criteria for the considering of dates, which dates we should write if 365 days are there in a year, which date we should mention in the history, to which date we have to give the importance. The dates we select, the dates around which we compose our story of past, are not important on their own. Why these dates are important? That date particular has no any importance. What story we write around it, or what is the event of that date, gives it importance. They become vital because we focus on a particular set of events as important. If our focus of study changes, if we begin to look at new issues, a new set of dates will appear significant. What is the meaning of this para? That it is in our hand what event we attach, or what incident we attach with any date, that will give the importance to the date. If we see many of the governor generals or viceroys have were there, our Indian history or British rule starts from Governor General Warren Hastings and it ends with the last viceroy, Lord Mountbatten. In between, many governor generals and viceroys were there, like Warren Hastings, Wellesley, Bentinck, Dalhousie, Canning, Lawrence, Layton, Ripon, Curzon, Harding, Irvine. Many of these, when generals, governor generals, and viceroys were there in their period, they have followed many of the activities, many policies that brought in our country, many achievements they got, and due to those things like activities, policies, and achievements, those dates have become important in the study of history. The chronology of their lives mark the different chapters of the history of British India. Their personal life has not any matter here, but what work they have done in our country, or which activities they have done, which policies they brought in government, what achievements they got, that has the importance in history. Then, can we not write about the history of this period in a different way? How can we make it different? How do we focus on the activities of different groups and classes in Indian society within the format of this history of governor generals? Separately, also, we can make this history separate, each governor's, each viceroy's history also we can make. When we write history or a story, we divide it into chapters, because only one lesson, one lesson or continuously in one part, we can't study it, we can't remember it, or we can't understand it. So it is needed to make it in parts. In the histories that revolve around the life of British Governor Generals and the activities of Indians simply do not fit. They have no space. Only British Governor Generals and their activities, the history revolves around all those things. Clearly, we need another format for our history. This would mean that the old dates will no longer have the significance they earlier had. A new set of dates will become more important for us to know. So only history and history again and again, only that study is not important. We have to see another importance of the dates. So we will move forward. The picture of Warren Hastings you can see here on the page. The first Governor General of India in 1773. While history books narrated the deeds of governor generals, biographies glorified them as persons, and paintings projected them as powerful figures. So, to show the power of these governor generals, these books or their works, biographies have been glorified, and their paintings also has become useful. Then how do we periodize, how to make the dividation of these periods, that we will see here. So in 1817, James Mill, a Scottish economist and political philosopher, published a massive 3-volume work. This para is important. This James Mill's work is also important here for the study of history. In 1817, he has come and he has divided Indian history in 3 groups or 3 periods. First of all, who was he? That is important. That he was a Scottish economist and political philosopher, and he published 3-volume work, A History of British India. It means the name of his book is A History of British India, and he has divided Indian history in 3 parts, that is Hindu, Muslim and British. When Britishers were there, we know that, but before the Britishers there were Muslims who were ruling on this country. Before Muslims, there were Hindus everywhere who were ruling on our country. So, because of that, James Mill has divided Indian history in 3 parts: Hindu, Muslim, and British. Then, why do we try and divide history into different periods? We do so in an attempt to capture the characteristics of a time, its central features as they appear to us. So, the terms through which we periodize, that is, demarcate the difference between periods, become important. So, when this periodization has been done, Hindu, Muslim, and British, it is important to identify, because particular which periods were there. Hindus period was different, Muslims period was different, Britishers period was different, their rules were different, or how it has run, the country has run, that was different. So we need this dividation. Mill thought that all Asian societies were at a lower level and civilization than Europe. So here we can see that Mill was not looking towards Indians as a similar. He was thinking that European countries, European people are at the highest level and Indians are at the lowest level. Their lifestyle or everything is very low. British rule, Mill felt, could civilize India. He thought that only British rule or only Britishers are there who can civilize these countries, or who can improve this country. To do this, it was necessary to introduce European manners, arts, institutions, and laws in India. And to improve them or to make them civilized, there is need to teach them in European manners or arts, institutions, education should be given, Europeans law should be uh, taught to them. Mill in fact suggested that the British should conquer all the territories in India to ensure the enlightenment and happiness of the Indian people. For India was not capable of progress without British help. So here we can understand that how uh, they thought about the Indians, that Indians by their own they can't develop, they can't be survive, so they need the help of British government or the Britishers. So we have to conquer all the territories, all the states and territories, means the whole country we have to capture, then only the Indians can be uh, can do progress or they will improve. In this idea of history, British rule represented all the forces of progress and civilization. The period before British rule was one of darkness. Can such a conception be accepted today? So here this sentence is given as on the side of from the side of Britishers, because they were thinking that these Indian people are living in a darkness, their life is so back or they are so backward, they don't know anything, they don't have education, they don't have any manners, or they don't have a proper lifestyle. That's why they were saying like this. But now today no one will accept these things if anyone will say. In any case, can we refer to any period of history as Hindu or Muslim? Did not a variety of faiths exist simultaneously in these periods? Why should we characterize an age only through the religion of the rulers of the time? To do so is to suggest that the lives and practices of the others do not really matter. We should also remember that even rulers in ancient India did not all share the same faith. So, if we see here, all these rulers also have did not have same faith, or James Mill has divided history in three parts, Hindu and Muslim, but it was not like that. Only which ruler is ruling over the country, on the name of or on the religion of that ruler, it should not be divided. Moving away from British classification, historians have usually divided Indian history into ancient, medieval, and modern. Now, if we see here, the James Mill has divided history in Hindu, Muslim, and British, and historians have divided history, Indian history, in ancient, medieval, and modern history. This division too has its problems. It is a periodization that it borrowed from the West, where the modern period was associated with the growth of all the forces of modernity, science, reason, democracy, liberty, and equality. These were all the Britishers thought. How they thought like that, they have forced here in India also. Medieval was a term used to describe a society where these features of modern society did not exist. And the third was the modern period. As we will see in this book, under British rule, people did not have equality, freedom of or liberty. Nor was the period one of economic growth and progress. Nothing was there. Many students therefore refer to this period as colonial period, because what Britishers were telling, Indians have to follow those rules, whatever the works they tell. Indians have to do. So this period was known as colonial period also. Then what is this colonial period? When Britishers came in India and they have established their rule, subjugating local Nawabs and Rajas. They have subjugated, or they have forcefully taken over the regions, they have taken over the rights of Nawabs and Rajas, all that is called as subjugating. Then they bought the goods they wanted at low prices, produce crops they needed for export, and we will see here that how they want what they wanted they have done here in our country. They forced the farmers to grow the crops which they wanted. They forced the people whatever they wanted they to do. Maybe it is politics, economic, social, cultural changes, all have brought through these Britishers. The next part of the lesson, that is, how do we know? So, what sources do historians use in writing about the last 50 years of Indian history? So, how these historians come to know, or how they have studied, from where they have got all this information, that we will see here now. Before in these last 250 years of Indian history, how these sources have been used. The sub point we'll see administration produces records. Now we'll see that from where these historians got the information. One important source is the official records of the British administration. So the first and most important record was official records. People were writing there or in the offices what happens, or what revenues have collected, what orders are given to the people. All that was written in the official records of the British administrations, and there a lot of information was given. The British believed that the act of writing was important. Every instruction, plan, policy, decision, agreement, investigation had to be clearly written up. They thought that everything must write in a diary, so that in writing format or written format everything should be there. Once this was done, things could be properly studied and debated. This conviction produced an administrative culture of memos, notings, and reports. So, whatever work is there, if once we write it up, the further program or further works will be done very carefully and in time. The British also felt that all important documents and letters needed to be carefully preserved, so they set up record rooms attached to all administrative institutions, the village Tehsildar's office, the collectorate, the commissioner's office, the provincial secretariats, the law courts, all had their record rooms. Specialized institutions like archives and museums were also established to preserve important records. So these things, or these offices, law courts, have been used to maintain the records, important records. If you go in any office, they have their own records, or they preserve it very carefully. Letters and memos that moved from one branch of the administration to another in the early years of the 19th century can still be read in the archives. So now also we can use those letters and memos because those have been preserved by the people. You can also study the notes and reports that district officials prepared, or the instructions and directives that were sent by officials at the top of provincial administrators. If we see previously in India only oral education was there, we will see this part in further lessons also. So instead of oral education now, due to Britishers, people have learned to write up all the material what they know, or they have started to preserve. Britishers have made it habitual to write all the things and preserve it to for the future, or to get to know if we need any time. In the early years of the 19th century, these documents were carefully copied out and beautifully written by calligraphists, that is, by those who specialized in the art of beautiful writing. By the middle of the 19th century, with the spread of printing, multiple copies of these records were printed as proceeding of each government department. So at the early years of 19th century, which these handwritten records were there, now they have started to damage, destroy. So, that's why it has been written again by the calligraphists, who were the writers or specialized art people were there who could write beautiful writings. So from them, these all the records have been written again in another copies. You can see here the picture of National Archives of India came up in 1920s. Then source 1 is on the right corner, reports to the Home Department. You can read that also. In 1946, the colonial government in India was trying to put down a mutiny that broke out on the ships of the Royal Indian Navy. Here is a sample of kind of reports the Home Department got from the different dockyards. So that how they have depicted, they have written here the record. Bombay, arrangements have been made for the army to take over ships and establishment. Another record we can see here, Karachi is also 301 mutineers are under arrest and few more strongly suspected are to be arrested. So these which news are there, we can come to know through these records only. After many years also, we are reading these records because those people have preserved these in archives. In this picture also you are seeing the National Archives of India came up in 1920s, and in that again museum and archive, both the things are there. So all the important documents or which important things are there from the history that have been preserved. Next part, we it is there surveys become important. When records, we have seen that with the help of these records we get the information about the past. Then what is these surveys? The practice of surveying also became common under the colonial administration. The British believed that a country had to be properly known before it could be effectively administered. So, when they wanted to start to administer the country, they wanted to survey the whole country, or they wanted to know each and every corner of the country, that which people live, what is their lifestyle, or where they can expand their rule, what are the opportunities they have over there. So, they wanted to survey over every part. By the early 19th century, detailed surveys were being carried out to map the entire country. In the villages, revenue surveys were conducted. Revenue surveys, again, it is different because they wanted to know that how many people are in a village, how many families are there, how much land they have, and according to that they will offer the this revenue to those people. The effort was to know the topography, the soil quality, the flora, the fauna, the local histories, and the cropping pattern, all the facts seen as necessary to know about to administer the region. They wanted to do very deep study of every region, that which type of topography means which type of land is there, mountainous region or plain, plateau, valleys. that they wanted to know the soil quality or fertile soil is there or not, which types of plants animals live in that region, what is the local history or which types of crops grow in any region, that all things they wanted to know. Census operations were held every 10 years. These prepare detailed records of the number of people in all the provinces of India. Census, we know that counting of the population, counting of the people of any region, that is called as census. So after every 10 years they were doing this counting or the census, and they came to know about the number of people of every region. Noting information on caste, religion, and occupation, there were many other surveys: botanical surveys, zoological surveys, archaeological surveys, or anthropological surveys, and forest surveys. Different types of surveys have been done. Then, what official records do not tell? We have seen the official records, what they have told us, but what not, which things these official records could not tell us. From this vast corpus of records, we can get to know a lot, but we must remember that these are official records. They tell us what the officials thought, what they were interested in, and what they wished to preserve for posterity. These records do not always help us understand what other people in the country felt and what lay behind their actions. It means that which official records are there, they will give us information about how much land is there, which type of people live in any region, or which types of clothes they were wearing, which types of crops they grown. This information we will get, but what about others? Many of other things are there that we can't know about from these records. So, which things are there that we can't know from the official records, and that from where we will get this? We will get this remaining information from the diaries of the people. If any regions people live writing the diaries, that diaries accounts of the pilgrims, the temples which are there, from those we will get information from the accounts of the pilgrims, travelers, autobiographies of the people, autobiographies of important personalities, and popular booklets. From all these, or from the local bazaar which document, if we get, from that we will get very very small information which we don't get from the official records. Or as printing spread, newspapers were published and issues were debated in public. Leaders and reformers wrote us to spread their ideas. Poets, novelists wrote to express their feelings. When newspapers started at that time, people have started to express their feelings through the poems or through the writings. All these sources, however, were produced by those who were literate. These all things were useful for the literate people who can read and write, but it was difficult for the illiterate people who couldn't read and write to read all these whatever the newspaper or books are there. They couldn't read. From this, we will not be able to understand how history was experienced and lived by the tribals and peasants, the workers, and in the mines, or the poor on the streets. So, these all people were illiterate people, and about them we can't know about with these official records or these diaries and biographies, autobiographies also. Yet this can be done if we make a little bit of effort, when we will see about the other things, like the which oral history also was there from one generation to another generation, which has been passed. Through that also we come to know, as well as old stories, or if we meet old people we will come to know about them. On another side, if you are seeing not fit for human consumption, so one column is given that will read newspapers provide accounts of the movements in different parts of the country. Here is a report of police strike in 1946. 1946 police strike is there. More than 2000 policemen in Delhi refused to take their food on Thursday morning as a protest against their low salaries and in this way we have seen in this lesson what is the importance of dates, then how do we periodize, what is colonial, then we have seen the official records, surveys, how important, and what are not the official records but these are useful for the survey. Okay, thank you.